Discussion has to be had about older versus newer. There is going to be a time in life where these film cameras, the old ones, unusable, not a viable, future-proofed market. However, that is not today.
When the age of men comes crashing down, but it is not this day.
This, and more broadly, film cameras, new film cameras in general. The Rollei 35 AF is now released, kind of, or the pre-orders are out. I am a bad journalist or whatever. I'm not good at like covering the news super well because I'm not timely. I'm not as diligent on some things as I could be. Like, I've not seen any videos about the Rollei 35 AF. So a lot of this is just postulation based upon a single comment that I received, which was the only comment I received. And I didn't receive any pushback on that comment. So I'm assuming that it's kind of accurate. And I'm very busy, so I can't be bothered with actually doing that level of research. But the comment was that the camera store is a really well-regarded outfit in Sweden. Yes. One of the Scandinavian countries, super well regarded, lots of repair knowledge, lots of camera knowledge in general, much more than myself. But regardless, they got the camera. They were not super impressed by the quality. They're not super impressed with the autofocus. Apparently it's too loud. I'm not super impressed with the fact that it is autofocus only. I think it'd still be cool if there was a zone focusing feature. And then there was also other comments regarding like camera quality and so on and so forth. All that to say is that we have two mass-produced, accessible film cameras out in the market, along with the litany of garbage that's out there. I've talked about many times the reusable disposable market, which is just a train wreck and a half. Leicas, which are unaffordable for most people, and then I've also heard issues with quality on that front. I think my mic just died. Okay, we're off the reservation here, but we'll see if this works. The MP, I think it was, spoke to somebody who was using one and was having a lot of issues with it. I don't really stay too up to date with Leica. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was like trying to explain the difference in like Leicas and lenses and stuff. And I understand the Leica cameras, the lenses. I was just like, dude, honestly, when people hear Leica, my brain just tunes it out because it's like, you are too poor to hear what they're talking about. Current climate of film cameras. You have two cameras that are relatively affordable. You have a bunch of garbage that we don't even want to talk about. I've made a video about it. Do not buy them unless you really want to, then by all means, whatever makes you happy. And then we have Leicas, which are, you know, actually, I don't want to drink that. I'm not going to drink that. The question was asked, and another one of my comments, because that's where I come up with all these videos, is like, oh, and it wasn't even a question. It was more of a point, because I was critiquing the 17. It was just like, oh, like, it's a new camera, all the stuff, warranty. That's all great. Cool. And the gang. Fantastic. But that kind of opened up my mind to a more broad question of, why would you get a new film camera? Like, what's the appeal to that? I think given that the options are very limited and very niche, it's very difficult to approach that in a way that's like, yeah, buy a new camera, unless you're looking for the cheap garbage, a Pentax 17, a Rollei 35 AF, or the Leicas. There's nothing out there to satisfy your needs. And the comment was also raised like, oh, you know, there's the warranty, they work, blah, blah, blah. And yes, they do. I think we really have to get down to the brass tacks of like, what is it that you're hoping to achieve with film photography in particular? I think for me, for most of the people I've spoken to, options out there do not meet any of our needs or desires. They don't satisfy any of that. So it's not a viable option. The Pentax 17 is not a camera for me. The only reason I bought it was because I want to support Pentax, because I wanted to make a video about it, and because I was really hoping to be proven wrong. None of those reasons would indicate that it would be something that I would enjoy shooting with. Like, none of those things are like, because I love half frame, because I like the fixed lens, because I like zone focusing. It has nothing to do with any of those. It's three completely different meanings, which are pretty much exclusively my approach. Everyone bought it for different reasons. I'm sure there might be some abstract similarity in terms of like people wanting to support Pentax, so on and so forth, which is in my mind, nice thing to do, not a good reason to to buy things. In the realm of like other industries and stuff, if a company produces a product that is substandard, does not meet the expectations or the needs of the public, then that product does not sell well, ergo the company financially affected by that negatively. You can see in such cases as video games. It's a very common example. There's all sorts of video games that get launched and, you know, the trailers are so great. It's a franchise that people like or whatever, but they release in a broken state and then the companies have to like play catch up to make it work or whatever. People get refunds, all this stuff. Doesn't perform well, yada, yada. You see that with shows sometimes as well, where people put a lot of money into shows, they don't perform well, and then they get canceled or whatever. And that's the transactional relationship between producer and consumer. I feel like something like the Pentax 17 kind of got an artificial stint because there were so many people that just wanted a new film camera and they were buying a new film camera because there was a new film camera to buy, not because it was something that they wanted. Where does this leave us? Not in a great place because, okay, so this is me speculating. Imagine a tinfoil hat on right now, but I don't think that the 17 or the 35 AF, whatever, I don't think that those create a new market as much as people would think that they would. I think that it might bring in a few people, and by few, I mean like a few who are like, oh, maybe I'm interested in shooting film. Now there's a new camera, so on and so forth. I think it really comes down to prior motivations as opposed to the direct inspiration for someone to start their photographic journey. That could just be me being burnt by the whole situation, and I could be completely incorrect. And again, I kind of hope to be, because this is an industry I do care a lot about. But in the realm of new cameras versus old cameras, I think that there's so much more of like just a general aesthetic appeal to the older film cameras. I think there's a much wider range of usability in older cameras, and I think overall there's a massive separation in terms of quality, not only in the physical and mechanical construction of them, but also in the intention behind them, because I think there are so many cameras, and I'm even thinking about this guy, which I spoke about kind of earlier, but the Pentax SL. This is a very weird camera. It doesn't have a light meter. It's a fully mechanical Spotmatic. Like, this would not exist in today's market because it doesn't appeal to somebody who just wants to go take pictures for social media. Like, there's a little bit more nuance to that system. So I don't think it would be produced, because I think the idea of the producer, the manufacturer, whatever, is trying to appeal to this market of accessibility and ease of use. That being said, I feel like that niche is already being satisfied by something like this, which is my phone that I'm using to record the audio because my mic died. So I think something like a phone, something like the little digital point and shoots. I have a camcorder somewhere that works fantastic for this. It captures that very nostalgic feeling, all of this stuff, for a fraction of the cost, much easier to use. I think with the phone, you can take your pictures like this, like you would with a half frame, and then you can put a film overlay on it, and it was film. With the digital stuff, who cares? Like, it looks cool. It's a neat thing. They're small. They're pocketable. This, bear with me, these are comparable sizes. Obviously, this has a lens on it and this doesn't, but these are about the same size. This is a big camera for a 35mm SLR. This is about the same size. It's a lot lighter, but it's going to take up the same footprint in a bag, or you could maybe put it in like a jacket pocket, but it's about the same as this. Versus something like, look at this, little Sony Webby. It's a little video camera. It's super cute. Has like a little swivel thing. You do one of those. Ooh. This literally is smaller than my phone. I can put that in my pocket. Obviously, again, it's not film, so it's going to be different. If the argument is that, like, oh, film is an aesthetic thing, that's an aesthetic thing as well. Super affordable. The only issue is it takes a little, like, Sony memory stick, but you get a card reader for that for, like, $15. Unlimited options for video stuff. There are old cameras that satisfy the needs of the new cameras. Yes, there is some issue with the fact that those have been around for a lot longer. Will it work? But even if they don't, I got this for, I think, $20, and standard shop servicing fees are going to be, the shop I was working at was like $150 plus parts, so like $185. So you're looking at for instance, say $30, $180, $210 tops to get this fully serviced, up to par, up to snuff, all this stuff. Other options vary. Obviously, there's always going to be price discrepancies, but across the board, I would say that you're still looking at sub 500 in terms of the cameras. The Pentax 17 is a $500 camera. The Rolly 35 AF is an $800 camera thereabouts. These things, they're very high, and it makes sense. There's a lot of technology that goes into it. I'm not trying to argue that, but the price is high for a lot of people, and for less money, you can get an older camera that satisfies a wider range of needs for you, the consumer, outside of a few notable issues. They will work better, and they are more accessible, and they're more fun to use. There's actual heart and soul put into them. It doesn't feel like this corporatized amalgamation of what somebody somewhere thinks other people might potentially like and want to spend a bunch of money on. It has to be had about older versus newer. There is going to be a time in life where these film cameras are, the old ones, unusable. The parts don't exist anymore. All the parts cameras have been scavenged. It's way too expensive. Film is not going to be around. The film manufacturers are going to be folded in on. No one develops film anymore, all this stuff. That will happen at some stage. It's not a viable, future-proofed market. However, that is not today. There are plenty of parts cameras. There's plenty of parts. There's plenty of cameras. All of them so interesting and so good for so many different reasons. Just take a pick. That's part of the problem, is there's so many out there. What do I start with? Well, I guess I'll just get the new thing. If you're like, oh, there's so much stuff out there. Yes, there is. There's a lot out there. But that's the beauty. That's the great thing. What are you looking for? Just start asking those questions. I feel like there's thousands of videos out there. I got like 500 on my channel alone that like go through all the different things in which you could be looking for in a film camera, and like this is where you should be, and if this is your budget, this is what you can kind of look for, all this stuff. Check out the Consumer Corner series. I go through a lot of that stuff. But anyway, the larger point overall is that it is such a vast landscape of different options for all sorts of people, and that's fantastic. It is a lot to get into. That doesn't mean you should not do it. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a great way to express yourself. It's a great way to kind of buy back and preserve some memories and some time, and also just a great way to spend money. I think you should get into film photography. I just don't think, and I have a hard time with it, but I don't think that the newer cameras are the best approach into it. Exception, of course, being the Leicas, because I've not really shot with them too much, and I know people just are going to shoot with Leicas, and that's great for them. I'm happy for them. I just don't think that the Pentax 17, and now hearing the few reports about the Rolly 35 AF, I just don't think that those are the best ways to get into it. I feel like it's kind of a disingenuous approach. It feels like a very corporatized, cheap film camera thing. And I'm, again, jazzed to see renewed interest in this field. I just wish it didn't feel so reductive. I think that's it for today's video. Really, I just wanted to talk about the idea behind new versus old. I think until new cameras really push something out there, there's just not enough variety, ultimately. There's a huge gap in the market. Really cheap garbage, medium range, very niche usability in terms of the 17 and the Mint Rolly 35 AF, and then high-end rangefinder Leica stuff, the too broke to talk about. There needs to be something in that like middle, like between the low and the mid-range, something in the middle there, in that like $300 range, whatever that entails. I don't know. But it needs to be something there, something like in that $500 to $800 range that like is an SLR with detachable lenses and all that stuff. I don't think, looking at the new cameras, I can't confidently and seriously recommend any of them to anybody, because unless it's a very specific situation, or unless you're just down to support the cause, there's nothing out there for you, in my mind, looking at it. I think that it's a way to shoot film for sure, but so is shooting film in a pinhole camera that you made out of a beer can. That's a thing you could do too. I'm not comparing the two, I'm just saying that that's something you could do. Older cameras, I think, are the way to go. So much more variety, much higher quality, and there are people out there that will repair them including myself. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it made sense. I hope the audio is all right. If not, feel free to leave a comment down below what you agree with, what you disagree with. If you like the video, please like it. If you disliked it, go ahead and dislike it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to check out more of my content. Got a lot of random stuff on here. Appreciate the support. I'll catch you on the next one.